Okay, I'm going to get started this morning by just welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see everyone here this morning. Welcome to everyone online as well. Today is what we call our Pali Canon and English study group. I'll explain to you guys what that is after we do our meditation, because we start with meditation and we have some other things going on here today and over the next several days that I'll explain to you as well. So I start with meditation, and the way that we do meditation is we chant to go into the meditation. I see somebody handed out the chanting sheets. The meditation is designed to train your mind to eliminate certain unwholesome qualities and to cultivate certain wholesome qualities. The Buddha taught this path to enlightenment, to train your mind to get to this mental state where the mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy, where the mind no longer experiences any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these discontent feelings and others are completely eliminated from the enlightened mind. And meditation is part of what you need in order to be able to get to that. But there's other things you need as well. And that's why we study the teachings of the Buddha, so that you can learn how to train your mind beyond just meditation. But since meditation is so important, we start with meditation each time that we have classes. So I'm going to be chanting to ease us into the meditation, and you guys are welcome to join along. These chants are in the Pali language. This is the historical language of the teachings of the Buddha. It's important to understand that there's nothing mystical or magical about these chants. It's not a rite or ritual or a ceremony or worship or anything like that. It's not prayer or anything like that. The teachings of the Buddha aren't about a bunch of beliefs and hoping that something good happens when you die. Instead, you're learning now, you're reflecting now to independently verify his teachings, and you're practicing now to integrate the teachings into your day-to-day life so that you can actually train your mind and experience more peace and joy now in the present moment. So you're not worshiping anything, you're not praying to anybody, asking for help. You are cultivating wisdom in order to train your mind so that you can make wiser and wiser decisions in the world and experience more and more improved results in your day-to-day life. So these chants, if you read the English translations, there is a lot of respect and admiration and gratitude to the Buddha in these chants. And because of that, I don't think the Buddha actually created these chants himself. They were probably created by his students, either during his life or after his death, because a Buddha would have eliminated his ego or his arrogance, his pride, his boastfulness. He wouldn't have walked around and saying, here, chant these things to me out of respect of me. But if you learned from somebody how to move from the anger and the sadness and frustration and all those other discontent feelings, and they help you get to this peaceful and joyful mental state that is a permanent mental state, and he didn't want anything from you, he didn't expect anything from you, he was just helping you out of the kindness of his heart, you'd probably have a lot of respect and gratitude for that person too. So his students had a lot of respect and gratitude for him because they were able to attain this mental state of enlightenment through his teachings. During his lifetime, he used chanting. This is how it came about, is that he actually helped his students to remember his teachings, because everything he taught was oral. They didn't write things down during that lifetime because the technology to write things down didn't exist in that region of the world during his lifetime. So he just spoke orally, and every 2 weeks his students would come together and they would chant and recite his teachings in order to commit them to their memory so they could actually practice his teachings. So there's nothing mystical or magical here. It was just mainly used in order to remember his teachings. But then his students, either during his life or after his death, must have created these as a way to honor and respect him. So you'll hear me chanting these as a way to ease into meditation and actually get more benefit out of the meditation. It's going to help you cultivate mindfulness or awareness of mind. It's going to help you cultivate concentration or memory. It's going to give you awareness of the breath to be able to get more benefit out of your meditation itself. Once we're in the meditation, I'll be giving you some guidance. You'll hear me talking and kind of guiding you through the meditation for a period of time, but then it's going to be quiet. We're just all going to be meditating together. Everyone here and everyone online who would like to join, we're just all going to be meditating together at the same time. I'm sure you'll hear the occasional sound here or there, but these things are all impermanent. If you hear a dog barking or a bird chirping or a car going by, you don't have to be disturbed by that. If you have craving for permanent silence, you'll be disturbed or annoyed when you hear a sound. But if you let go of any kind of craving for permanence, then your mind can actually be peaceful and joyful. So there'll be that period of time where it's just quiet and we're just meditating together. Then we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And then that's where I'll start today's class. If you need some guidance on your body positioning, the Buddha has 4 positions that he taught to meditate in. They're seated, lying, standing, and walking. And I teach all these at different times in the various courses and retreats that I share. Oftentimes students are learning in the seated position, so I'll give you some guidance on the seated position so you understand what that is. In the seated position, you normally have a cushion or maybe more under your rear. You also might decide to sit in a chair, or if you're at home, you might be on a sofa or a bench or a wheelchair or something like that. You can really sit however you're comfortable. There isn't just one permanent way that everybody needs to sit, because all of our bodies are different and we're going to find different things to be comfortable. So first and foremost, just find whatever's comfortable for you. In terms of sitting on the floor, usually a cushion is really helpful to be sitting on the floor. So if you have a cushion or 2 or 3 or 4, some people have even more, get as many as you like, right? And if you're sitting cross-legged, usually your legs being lightly crossed is best. So if you have them real tight, then it's going to impede the circulation and it'll cause pain. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets their hips up in the air and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. So you might decide to try that to allow the circulation to flow. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If you would like to use this, you could use this. But again, it's not about everybody doing it exactly the same way. There's other options here as well. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you put your hands and arms wherever you're comfortable. And then the same thing for anybody who's sitting in a chair or a sofa or a wheelchair. Same thing. Just put your legs and your hands and arms wherever you're comfortable. Sometimes people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly crossed at the ankles. And then again, your hands and arms can go wherever you like. The upper body, it's helpful if it's erect. If you have your sternum up and your shoulders back, it'll keep your mind attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind could be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So you'd like to kind of be in the middle with your upper body. With the sternum up and the shoulders back, it'll help you be attentive and alert during the meditation so you can actively train the mind during the meditation. And it also helps you to breathe too, because with your sternum up and your shoulders back, you can breathe in through the nose and out through the nose more easily. So again, I'm going to ease us into meditation with chanting, which you guys are more than welcome to join along in, and then I'll come back in with some chanting. With some guidance on the meditation. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Wat Tung Mahakawanang Apiwateyami Sawakato Mahakawata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakava Arahang Samma Sambuddho cha charanang sammuno Sakato rokavitu Anutero purisa Dhamma sati satatava manusarang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled. Just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาพุทธังมหาเขวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys here at the temple. Welcome to everyone joining us online. Nice to see all of you guys this morning. As I mentioned, today is our Pali Canon and English study group. This is where we study the original words of the Buddha in order to help students make their way to enlightenment. There's various programs that we have here. Some of them are designed more for people who are just getting started on the path to enlightenment, who are active in learning the teachings of the Buddha. This would be like Sunday and Wednesday. We have a program called the Group Learning Program, which is using this first book of the book series, where each Sunday I go chapter by chapter by chapter, helping you guys to develop a foundation in the path to enlightenment. This is a 7-month program that'll gradually help you build up your understanding of the path to enlightenment. And we just restarted this program recently, so it's an ideal time to join into the program. It's available here at the temple, and you can even join online as well as you travel around the world. So at 9 a.m. Sunday morning and 9 p.m. Sunday evening, I do it from here. It's 9 a.m. and then from 9 p.m. I do it from home and I live stream it. So no matter where you are, there should be a live class available for you. And where you can't make the live class, they're all recorded on our YouTube channel, our Facebook group, and our podcast. You can gradually learn the teachings of the Buddha. Then there's next week, starting on Monday, there's what's called the Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment. That's Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. That's a great time to really get a good dose of the teachings of the Buddha in a short period of time, and you're able to really build a really nice foundation for the path to enlightenment. And then in about 2 weeks from now, we have a course called Experiencing the Jhanas and the 4 Stages of Enlightenment. And even today, we actually have a course that this afternoon from 1 to 4, it's called Introduction to the Teachings of the Buddha. this is a great little 3-hour course that is going to give you kind of an introduction to the teachings and then teach you the very first teaching of the Buddha called the Four Noble Truths, where you learn the problem in the unenlightened mind, the cause of this problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. This is where you can have a breakthrough to understanding what it is that's causing your anger and your sadness and your frustration and all these other discontent feelings, and how to actually eliminate them. You wouldn't be able to actually eliminate these feelings if you didn't know what was causing them. So his very first teaching, called the Four Noble Truths, it's going to explain to you the problem that you're experiencing, the cause of that, the elimination of it, and the path forward of how to actually fix it. And the way that the teachings of the Buddha are is they're independently verifiable, that there's no belief in his teachings whatsoever. You're not believing a bunch of things and then hoping something good happens when you die. Instead, you're learning now. You're examining and investigating his teachings. You're reflecting on them to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. And then you're practicing his teachings, integrating them into your life on a day-to-day basis to train your mind. And this is where you cultivate wisdom. You're learning the wisdom of the natural laws of existence. There's certain natural laws that are affecting you, whether you're aware of it or not. And when you're having difficulties and struggles in the world, this is because your mind lacks wisdom of these natural laws. And the more that you gain wisdom of these natural laws through learning, reflecting, and practicing, you'll make wiser and wiser decisions that experience more and more wholesome results in your life, or what we refer to as wholesome karma, or some people refer to it as karma. This natural law of karma, this word karma is from the Pali language, where the word karma is from the Sanskrit language. It's the same natural law. It's just a different language that people are using. This isn't anything mystical or magical. It's not punishments and rewards. It's not any black cloud that's following you around. It's not even about who's at fault or who's to blame. It's about understanding that when you make wise decisions, you will experience wholesome results or wholesome karma. Or when you make unwise decisions, you're going to experience unwholesome results or unwholesome karma. So what the Buddha is helping you to do is awaken to this natural law through his teachings so that you can see the wise decisions that lead to wholesome results, and you can make more and more wise decisions in your life. Oftentimes when we experience unfortunate things in our life, we tend to blame it on other people. In the unenlightened state, with the lack of wisdom, we will blame what we experience on other people typically. But when you do that, you're actually not able to improve it, because the mind thinks that everything that you're experiencing that is unwholesome, it's coming from somebody else. So that means you're locked in. You can't do anything to change it. But when you see true reality and you understand what the Buddha is teaching you, is that everything you're experiencing in life, either wholesome or unwholesome, it's coming from decisions that you're making. And now when you make different decisions using the wisdom of these teachings, you'll experience different results. You'll experience wholesome results. So his teachings are all about helping you awaken to this natural law. And typically what I'm doing is I'm teaching for 15, 20, 30 minutes. I'm opening up to questions, another 15, 20, 30 minutes opening up to questions. But this study group on Saturday is what we do is we have the original words of the Buddha from this book series, volumes 2 through 13, where the first program we study volume 1. In this program, we study volumes 2 through 13. And now we're in volume 3, chapters 101. And then usually we study about 10 chapters per day. Not necessarily in this class, but definitely in the evening class, we'll be studying 10 chapters. We just go in this class as far as we can go in a given day. What I do is I invite students to read this. This is a very short chapter. You see, it's not even a page long. So if there's somebody here that would like to volunteer to read this, or if there's someone in Zoom that would like to volunteer to read this, if you're here in the temple, if you would like to volunteer to read, or you have questions at any point, we have microphones in this white bowl here. If you could just come get one, press the gray button, you'll see the lights come on. Just wait a second or so and hold it up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you spoke without a mic here, they wouldn't be able to hear you online. And then for those of you guys that are online, if you would like to volunteer to read or have questions, those of you in Zoom, you can just electronically raise your hand and then unmute your mic, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple. They'll be able to hear you at the live stream. And then if you guys have questions throughout the live stream, you can put those into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section, or like I mentioned, you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So what I'm going to do is have volunteer to read this chapter. I will then share teachings on that for maybe 5 minutes or so, and then I'm going to open up to any questions that you guys have. Again, this isn't the place where people usually start learning. This is more of a study group where usually people will start in a foundational program. But if you've never learned with me before, if you've never learned the teachings of the Buddha, it's okay. You're going to learn plenty today. Just understand that usually you kind of take a foundational program, build out your framework of understanding of the teachings of the Buddha, and then a program like this is going to help you fill that in so that you can get more and more details about the teachings. So I saw, Roxanne, you had your hand up. You like to read? Yeah, go ahead.
Discontentedness is dependently arisen. Good, Ananda. Anyone answering rightly would answer just as Sariputta has done. I have said, Ananda, that discontentedness is dependently arisen. Dependent on what? Dependent on contact. If one were to speak thus, one would be stating what has been said by me and would not be misrepresent me with what is contrary to the truth. One would explain in accordance with the teachings, and no reasonable consequence of one's assertion would give ground for criticism. Therein, Ananda, in the case of those ascetics and Brahmins, advocates of Kama, who maintain that discontentedness is created by oneself, that is conditioned by contact. Also in the case of those ascetics and Brahmins, advocates of Kama, who maintain that discontentedness is created by another, that too is conditioned by contact. Also in the case of those ascetics and Brahmins, advocates of Kama, who maintain that discontentedness is created both by oneself and by another, that too is conditioned by contact. Also in the case of those ascetics and Brahmins, advocates of Kama, who maintain that discontentedness has arisen randomly, being created neither by oneself nor by another, that too is conditioned by contact.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So I'm going to explain to you guys some other teachings that you need to know in order to understand this one. Some of you guys have already studied those teachings. Others, this will be a good way for you to understand what the Buddha is teaching you here. The path to enlightenment that the Buddha teaches is all about helping you eliminate your anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you don't even have the slightest displeasure in the mind. Your mind is performing optimally. You'll notice focus, concentration, clarity, deep memory. Your personal, professional relationships will be blossoming. You won't be having bitterness and hostility and harshness in your mind anymore. You don't even have a bad mood. That all the causes and conditions that are producing these kinds of things to occur are uprooted and eliminated out of the mind. You accomplish this by acquiring wisdom of how to actually train your mind. Right now, you might be cleaning your body every day, and that's something that we learned from our parents growing up. But depending on how you grew up and the wisdom that your parents might have had or the lack thereof, you might not have been taught how to clean your mind. That here in Thailand, they're being taught how to also clean the mind. Because if you're only cleaning the body, you're not addressing the full being. You haven't addressed this other part that you need to understand. So this is one of the reasons why people come to Thailand, because it's so peaceful here. It's so joyful because people have learned how to clean their mind and they're not being bitter and harsh and hostile and aggressive with each other, because they learned how to do this through training their own mind. So the Buddha is teaching you how to train your mind, how to eliminate the causes and conditions that are producing these discontent feelings. That's what we refer to as discontentedness, the anger, the bitterness, the hostility, the sadness, the frustration, the fear, the guilt, the shame. All of this stuff is all discontentedness. So in order to eliminate these things, you need to know what's causing it. And in the Four Noble Truths, which I'm going to be teaching this afternoon, starting from 1 to 4, you're going to learn that it's craving, desire, attachment that is the cause of these feelings. The cause of the anger and the sadness and frustration and all those other discontent feelings is within your own mind, that we tend to blame this on other people when we lack wisdom. We think that mom is making me annoyed, or brother is frustrating me, or my life partner, my children, or my coworkers are annoying me. But this isn't actually true. It's your own mind that's causing this. And I'm going to teach it to you in a way that you can independently verify, and you can see it for yourself that your own mind is causing these feelings. As long as you walk around believing that other people are causing you to experience these feelings, you'll never actually eliminate them. That's why you keep experiencing anger and frustration over and over and over again, because your mind has this belief. There's this false belief in your mind that other people are causing you to be angry. But by the time you get to enlightenment, you don't have any beliefs in your mind. You know the truth of what truly is occurring, and it's one's own mind that is causing these feelings, and you will have eradicated the causes and conditions that are producing it, which is craving, desire, attachment. What craving, desire, attachment is this longing and yearning, this wanting things to be a certain way. And if you get things your way, the way you want, the way you expect, you get happy. But if you get things not the way you want, then you get angry, or you get sad, or you get frustrated. So for example, if your bank account balance is here, maybe you're so happy. Wow, I'm so happy. But then when your bank account goes here, you're sad. So as long as you allow your mind to get those what's called conditional pleasant feelings, then when that condition changes, you're going to experience the painful feelings. And everything around you is constantly changing. You live in a world that is impermanent. There's constant change. So if you're craving for things to be a certain way, you can only be happy when things are that way. And the world's not going to be your way. But that's what the unenlightened mind does, is we want things to be a certain way. So for example, if it's sunny outside and it's sunny, you might be happy. But then if it rains, you might be sad or frustrated or angry. Or maybe if you have a boyfriend or girlfriend, you're so happy and excited. But then when you guys break up, you're sad and frustrated. This isn't love that's causing this. It's the mind craving permanence and wanting things to be a certain way. And if things are going the way you want, then you get happy. And if you don't get what you want, you get sad or angry or frustrated. When we talk about this through what's called the 10 fetters, these 10 individual pollutions that the Buddha discovered, we refer to it as sensual desire. What sensual desire is where the mind is longing, yearning through the senses, through the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind itself. The mind is longing, yearning for pleasurable contact. And when the mind gets agreeable contact, then you get those pleasant feelings. But if you get disagreeable contact, you get painful feelings. So for example, if somebody says to you and you hear, wow, you're so handsome, or oh, you're so beautiful. Those clothes really bring out the colors of your eyes. You're so beautiful. You feel so maybe happy because you're hearing agreeable contact. You have a craving for people to look at you in a favorable way. And now when you hear this agreeable thing, you get these pleasant feelings. But now because of impermanence, it's only a matter of time before someone comes along and tells you how horrible you look, and they start degrading you and being disparaging and talk negative to you. And now you hear disagreeable things. In your mind, you have a craving that you always want to hear agreeable things. So the mind is longing, yearning through the senses, like the ears, wanting to hear permanently agreeable things. Here's another example with the ears. Say you're in a car and you're at a stoplight and someone next to you has some kind of music on and you're like, yeah, that's my jam. All right, let's go. Come on. Yeah, that's fun. All right, let's have a good time. Yeah, party. All right, right? And now you get so happy, you get so pleasurable. But now you pull up to the next stoplight and someone has music on that you despise and you just don't like it and you think it's the most horrible music ever. And now you get frustrated. Right? Because the mind has a craving. It's wanting this permanently agreeable contact through the ears. And when you get what you want, you're happy. But when you don't get what you want, you experience the painful feelings like anger, sadness, or frustration. It's not the music that's causing it. It's not the person who's playing the music. That's not what's causing your frustration. What's causing it is the mind's sensual desire, the longing, the yearning, the craving, the desire, the wanting things to be a certain way. And it's not only happening through the ears, it's happening through the eyes and the nose the tongue, the body, and the mind itself. The mind is wanting this contact to be permanently agreeable. And if there's craving in the mind, then the mind's going to experience either pleasant feelings or painful feelings. And the mind doesn't realize that you live in an impermanent world. You're not going to have permanently agreeable contact. It's just not possible. So what the Buddha is teaching you here is that when you experience discontentedness, it's coming from contact. You're having contact through the 6 sense bases. There's something that you see. Maybe you're walking down the street and you see a parent holding the hand of their child, and you're like, that's so beautiful. Look at them holding hands as they're walking down the street. That's so wonderful. I find that to be very pleasurable. And you get maybe so happy. But now you get to the stoplight and you turn the corner and you look and you see a parent slap their child across the face. Right? And that might be disagreeable to you. And now you get frustrated and angry. Right? So this is the mind having contact through the eyes. And that's why the Buddha is saying that discontentedness is dependently arisen. Dependent on what? It's dependent on contact. That if you have contact through these sense bases and you have craving in your mind, which he talks about in other discourses, then you're going to get either conditional pleasant feelings or painful feelings, or feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. It's based on some condition. The condition is that you have craving, desire, attachment in your mind, and you're having this contact through your senses. So this is what you're learning as part of the teachings of the Buddha, is what's causing these feelings so that you can understand what's happening. This is the way your mind experiences these discontent feelings, is it's coming through these doorways. You can think about the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, the body, and the mind as a doorway. We actually call them the 6 sense bases. These are the 6 sense bases. The mind is longing, yearning through these, wanting permanently agreeable contact, but yet you live in an impermanent world. You can't have permanently agreeable contact through any of your sense bases. So as long as there's craving in there, you will be attracted to these things and you will be repulsed by these. So maybe you walk past a flower store and you get a whiff of the odor of the flowers. It's like, wow, that smells so great. But then you walk a few more steps and you smell the sewer. And it's like, that's horrible. The mind's repulsed by it. Right? You can get to the point where you understand these things are impermanent. Wow, that's a great smell. There's flowers coming out. Oh, there's the smell of the sewer. Okay, well, I guess I'll just keep walking. Right? No reason to be repulsed by it. No reason to complain and feel miserable. No need to form inner feelings on this impermanent situation. Right? We don't need to form inner feelings on this impermanent situation. We don't need to be angry at that mother or father who slaps their child across the face. It's unwise. I don't suggest you hit children. I don't suggest you hit anybody at all. It's unwise, but we don't have to form feelings based on it, right? The feelings don't help us at all. The anger is just going to cloud our mind and make it difficult to make any decisions. When that person pulls up to us next to music, we don't have to get so happy and excited when someone has music that we like, and then we don't have to get frustrated when someone has music that we don't like. It's an impermanent situation. Hey, all right, that music sounds good. That's wonderful. All right, that's the type of music I like. Yeah. And now someone pulls up with some other music. Hey, that's not the music I listen to, but she's having fun or he's having fun. Good for them, right? They enjoy that music. Good for them, right? No need for me to be frustrated just because they have music that I don't typically listen to, right? This is an impermanent situation. I'm going to be sitting here for 3 minutes. This person's listening to their music and they're going to be gone. No reason to sit there and be frustrated. But the mind with its craving will experience those painful feelings. So you need to be able to see these conditional pleasant feelings as unsatisfactory, because these conditional pleasant feelings, they're temporary. They're based on some condition. They will arise, they will change, and they will fade away. If you allow your mind to get conditional pleasant feelings based on that music that you like so much, that means that the painful feelings are waiting right around the corner. You'd like to get to the point where you have unconditional happiness, unconditional joy, where your mind is just always joyful. You're just always happy unconditionally. There's no condition that's producing it. So as soon as your mind gets happy because of something, now your mind is going to experience the painful feelings when that something changes. If you get happy because it's sunny, that means when it's not sunny, you will be frustrated and angry. If you get happy when you have a certain amount of money in your bank account, you will be sad or angry or frustrated when you have a different amount in your bank account. If your mom and dad do this and you get happy, when they do this, you will get frustrated and angry and upset, right? So you need to be able to see the conditional pleasant feelings as just as much a part of the problem. So that when the mind is forming feelings because of something, now it's going to experience both sides of that. What the Buddha is teaching you to be able to do is to get to these mental states, these mental qualities where you're just always peaceful and you're always joyful. And it takes training of the mind, that the mind is in the unenlightened state with its lack of wisdom will form feelings based on some situation, that something is occurring and now you will have feelings about that. So by the time you get to enlightenment, your mind isn't numb. Sometimes when I start describing enlightenment, people are like, it sounds like you're kind of numb and you don't have any feelings at all. You're actually having unconditioned mental qualities where your mind's just always peaceful. It's always joyful. That instead of being happy because of something, you're just always happy. It doesn't matter. Nothing can crash your happiness. Some people think like, well, if there's a war in the world, shouldn't you be angry? Shouldn't you be frustrated? Why? That doesn't help anything at all. You being angry and frustrated. You actually can maintain your joy despite the war, right? It's not that you're happy because of the war. You're happy despite the war. You're happy despite people are doing things differently than what you would choose to do. You can maintain your happiness. Just because people are doing things differently than the way you do it, you don't need to get angry or frustrated or sad. But this comes with training. You need to be able to train your mind. So the Buddha is helping people to be able to see that this contact is what's actually the condition that is leading to this discontentedness. Because if you know this, anytime your mind is discontent, you can trace it down to a certain doorway, to a certain sense base. It's either something you saw, something you heard, something you smelled, something you tasted, something that came in contact with the body, or some thought or idea that went through the mind. That's what created it, that there was some kind of contact that you experienced. And now once you know that, there's other things that you learn about how to actually eliminate it. Here, what the Buddha is teaching is actually something that people think other than his students. Here where he says, therein Ananda, in the case of those ascetics and Brahmins, these are people who are kind of like trying to get to enlightenment essentially, and Hindu priests as well. Advocates of Gama, meaning that they understand the natural law of Gama, who maintain that discontentedness is created by oneself. That is conditioned by contact. It means that, hey, there's this contact that's coming in, and that's what's creating the discontentedness. And this is what's actually occurring, that the discontentedness is being caused by your own mind. It's not being caused by other people. But then he goes into these other cases of what people thought during the time, which is actually untrue, where he says, ascetics and Brahmins, advocates of Gama, who maintain discontentedness is created by another person, right? This isn't actually true. Your discontentedness isn't created by another person. It's created by your own mind. He's saying that too, if those people think that way, that too is conditioned on contact. And he's basically going through these different scenarios and showing you that without contact, then you're not going to be experiencing discontentedness. So one of the things you can use this as, right? Like say you come together with your mom or your dad or your brothers and sisters, and all of a sudden an argument breaks out. And you're having this contact through the ears and through the eyes, and you're starting to notice discontentedness arising, the wisest thing to do is to break contact. Because if you don't have contact, then you can't get discontent. So you walk away, right? You walk away. Go get some fruit, go get a smoothie, go walk down the street, go for a bike ride, let everybody cool down, come back 30 minutes later, an hour later, it'll be completely different. But if you maintain contact and you sit there and you get in there and you're arguing and fighting and festering, your mind's just as discontent as everyone else. You're not helping anything, right? So this is where you can use something like this as a real asset, is that if you understand that it's contact that's causing these discontent feelings arise, anytime you're noticing discontent feelings arising, because you're going to notice maybe tingling in the body, tightening in the chest, tightening in the throat, heat in the face, maybe pressure in the skull. When you start noticing those bodily sensations, you can cut that off and let it go. Train your mind to break contact and walk away. And now, more and more, you'll have gained control and discipline over your mind. You won't allow your mind to become agitated and frustrated and annoyed. That's how you use something like this in your day-to-day practice. So do you guys have any questions on this particular discourse? This is called Discontentedness is Dependently Arisen. So those of you guys online, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or here you guys can use the microphones if you'd like to ask questions. Okay, let me see if we have anything. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. Okay, so we have this next one, which is 102. Is there someone, by the way, what you have here is you have the words of the Buddha in each one of these chapters. You have a reference that takes you back to the original source teachings in the Pali Canon. The Pali Canon is 45 volumes of books that are this thick. That's the original words of the Buddha. This reference will take you back so you can see what was the Buddha talking about before this and what was he talking about after it, because you can see here, he was in the middle of a conversation, and we put this excerpt in here so you could learn this particular thing. And then after the reference, you've got words from me that are helping you to understand what the Buddha is teaching you here. And here you can see I'm talking about the 6 sense bases and some other things as well. So this is going to help you to bring the teachings into your day-to-day life. The Buddha teaches very clear, very concise, and very precise. You don't have to interpret his teachings. You don't have to figure out what he's saying. But it is sometimes needed that you understand another teaching in order to understand that teaching. So that's what I'm doing here for you. And all these books are available for free. You can download it from our website and get it completely free. All of them, all 13 books. You can take it and go print it if you like. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can get them on Amazon. If you have access to Amazon in your country, you can get all these books. These are the words of the Buddha. Okay? So now we go to chapter 102. Is there someone who would like to read this one? Pat? Sure. Go ahead.
With the destruction of craving comes the destruction of unwholesome karma. Monks, develop the path and the way that leads to the destruction of craving. And what is the path and the way that leads to the destruction of craving? It is the 7 factors of enlightenment. What 7? The enlightenment factor of mindfulness, the enlightenment factor of investigation, the enlightenment factor of energy, the enlightenment factor of joy, the enlightenment factor of tranquility, the enlightenment factor of concentration, and the enlightenment factor of equanimity. When this was said, the Venerable Udai asked the perfectly enlightened one, "Venerable Sir, how are the 7 factors of enlightenment developed and cultivated so that they lead to the destruction of craving?" Here, Udai, a monk develops the enlightenment factor of mindfulness, which is based upon seclusion, freedom from strong feelings and elimination, maturing in release, which is immense, superb, measureless, without ill will. When he develops the enlightenment factor of mindfulness, which is based upon seclusion, freedom from strong feelings and elimination, maturing in release, which is immense, superb, measureless, without ill will, craving is abandoned. With the abandoning of craving, unwholesome karma is abandoned. With the abandoning of unwholesome karma, discontentedness is abandoned. All of the 7 factors of enlightenment are explained in the same way to include in the enlightenment factor of investigation, energy, joy, tranquility, and concentration, with the final factor being described in the same way as in the below. He develops the enlightenment factor of equanimity, which is based upon seclusion, freedom from strong feelings and elimination, maturing in release, which is immense, superb, measureless, without ill will. When he develops the enlightenment factor of equanimity, which is based upon seclusion, freedom from strong feelings and elimination, maturing in release, which is immense, superb, measureless, without ill will, craving is abandoned. With the abandoning of craving, unwholesome karma is abandoned. With the abandoning of unwholesome karma, discontentedness is abandoned. Thus, Udai, with the destruction of craving comes the destruction of unwholesome kama. With the destruction of unwholesome kama comes the destruction of discontentedness.
Okay, thank you, sir. So this path to enlightenment, as I mentioned, is to eliminate your discontentedness, all those conditioned feelings, so that you can get to the permanent peace and the permanent joy where the mind's just always happy. This is unconditional mental states that there's no condition that is actually producing it. So therefore, there's nothing that could stop it. It's kind of like if you have the sun and you have clouds in front of it, when you peel away the clouds and the sun can shine through. Your mind is essentially the same way, that you have these pollutions that are in the mind, that when you peel those pollutions out of the way, now the brightness and the radiance of the enlightened mind, the natural mind, can actually shine through, and you'll start experiencing these natural qualities of enlightenment. So the Buddha is teaching you how to eliminate these pollutions so that these qualities can shine through. And what he's talking about here is using the 7 factors of enlightenment to eliminate one of the things that is causing the mind to be hindered and experience these discontent feelings. It's craving, desire, attachment that needs to be eliminated from the mind. And you'll learn this in the Four Noble Truths. If you learn the Four Noble Truths this afternoon or any of the other classes with me, that there's something called the Eightfold Path. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha that you use in order to eliminate all craving, desire, attachment and extinguish your unwholesome karma. But also, you're going to need something called the 7 factors of enlightenment. And I teach this at different times in the various programs that I share. Here, the Buddha is pointing to it as, hey, this is going to help you to also eliminate craving, desire, attachment. This isn't the only thing that you would need in order to eliminate craving, desire, attachment, but it's one of the things that you need. This is where you need to be able to look at the Buddha's teachings in totality. Sometimes when somebody sees a teaching like this, it's like, oh, it's only the 7 factors of enlightenment. That's all I need to learn. And then I can eliminate my craving, desire, attachment, and my discontentedness. But this isn't actually true. This is just one of the things, because you can see other teachings where he says you need the Eightfold Path to eliminate craving. And you can see other teachings where he talks about meditation and generosity and things like this. So this is just one of the things that you need in order to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. It's not the only thing. Notice he doesn't say this is the only thing that you need. So what the 7 factors of enlightenment is they're like tools to be able to fine-tune the mind. This core central teaching of the Eightfold Path, which I'll kind of introduce a little bit this afternoon, this is what you're learning when you're first getting started, is the Eightfold Path. And if you were to have like a big piece of wood, like a log, and you were trying to make a sculpture, and you're trying to make this beautiful human being sculpture out of this piece of log, when you first get started, you would probably take a hatchet or an axe, and you'd be chucking off big chunks of wood. That's what the Eightfold Path does for you, that it chucks off these big chunks of wood. You'll learn the Eightfold Path. It's right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So when you're chucking off those big chunks of wood, you're chucking off wrong view, wrong intention, wrong speech, because you're probably speaking to people in ways that are unwise. You might be bitter and harsh and hostile to people sometimes. Or you might be chucking off wrong action, wrong livelihood, wrong effort, wrong mindfulness, and wrong concentration. And now you're kind of getting this sculpture down to something that you can somewhat manage. But eventually, you're going to need to go in with a fine tool, if you were making the sculpture, and put in the wrinkles in the eyes and the eyelashes and things like this. And that's what the 7 factors of enlightenment are, is once you've gotten your mind to the point where you're practicing the Eightfold Path to a certain degree, you're going to need to go in and fine-tune the mind. And this is where this comes in as a tool. The first one here is mindfulness. That's what the Buddha is teaching you as part of the 7 factors of enlightenment. And he teaches you this in the Eightfold Path as well. Mindfulness generally is awareness of mind, where you're aware of what's going on in the mind. Oftentimes in the unenlightened state, we don't understand what's going on in the mind. We're not aware of our thoughts, our ideas. You get angry and you just let it rip, and you bitter and harsh and hostile with people. This is because the mind lacks mindfulness. You're not aware of what's going on in your own mind. So there's tools and techniques that he provides you through meditation and other things to be able to cultivate this awareness of mind. And more specifically, you'll need to learn the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And I teach that in the various programs that I teach, that you're going to need to know that in order to be able to practice mindfulness fully. Well, once you have this awareness of mind, What the Buddha teaches is that when you notice that your mind is sluggish and it's dull and it's lethargic or it's complacent, then you practice the enlightenment factor of investigation, energy, and joy. This is going to uplift the mind and bring the mind to the middle. What the enlightenment factor of investigation is where you investigate the teachings. You study his words. You study and learn his teachings. Because when you're dull and lethargic and you're feeling sluggish and complacent, that's the last thing you're interested in doing. So you're going to need to apply the effort to investigate his teachings. Coming to the temple, hearing a teacher talk, reading a book, having conversation with friends about the teachings. You're going to need to investigate them. As you're investigating the teachings, you're going to start getting the answers to the very problems that you have in a day-to-day life. And that's where the energy starts to spring up. You start getting this energy in the mind. And then this is where the joy comes from. So these are kind of like a cascading effect that when your mind is dull and lethargic, you notice that with your mindfulness, then you know that the solution is to investigate the teachings. And now this is where the energy and the joy springs up. Okay. But then when you notice your mind is excited and overactive and you're kind of bouncing off the walls, that's where you bring in the enlightenment factors of tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. These are the enlightenment factors that bring the mind to the middle with the calmness and composure, right? That tranquility is the peacefulness. The concentration is the focus. And then the equanimity is the calmness and composure. So that's just the opposite of this mind that's kind of overactive and, bouncing off the walls, so to speak. Too much energy in the mind, you've got to calm it down and bring it to the middle. And now more and more, when you get your mind in the middle, it'll just stay there all the time. But you got to train it to do that. So this tool is to fine-tune the mind. When you see your mind on either side, sluggish and dull, or overactive with anxiety perhaps, you have these different tools to bring the mind to the middle. And now the more and more that your mind is in the middle, it'll just stay there all the time. It's a real chore to try to bring your mind to the middle. You've got to do work on this path to enlightenment. You're not going to just sit down under a tree and meditate and instantly get to enlightenment. This is one of the biggest myths about the teachings of the Buddha. Some people think that that's what he did. But if you learn his teachings, that's absolutely not what he did. He'll explain it to you, what he actually did. And this is what he's explaining to you. This is what he did, these kinds of things in order to get to enlightenment. So this is a tool that you can use. And you can almost think of it like a doctor. Some people kind of describe the Buddha like a doctor. There are certain symptoms, and then you apply a certain prescription, right? And you are your own best doctor. When you notice the symptoms in your mind, then you have the prescription. When you notice the symptom of dullness or lethargic or sluggish condition, the tool, the prescription that you would like to apply, the antidote, is investigation, energy, and joy. And then when you notice your mind is overactive and maybe anxiety, if you see that symptom, then the prescription or the antidote or the remedy is tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. And that's what brings the mind to the middle. And now more and more, when your mind's in the middle, you'll be able to stay there. The mind will be able to stay there. And now you can just always be focused and always be concentrated. You can always have this energy and this joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you don't even get exhausted anymore, right? Now, if you have craving in your mind, you'll go out into the world, and if you get all your cravings fulfilled that day, wow, this was the best day ever. Oh, it was such a good day. You come home and you feel so great, like, wow, it was so wonderful. That's because you got everything you wanted pretty much in that day. But if you go out into the world and you're not getting what you want, you'll come home and you'll be like, this was a miserable day. This was so horrible. It was so hectic. And you'll feel exhausted because you were out there chasing things and you didn't get what you wanted. You might feel like you have bricks on your shoulders or bricks on your feet. This is because your mind's chasing and chasing and chasing, right? So you can get to the point where every day is a wonderful day, every single day, because you're not out there chasing. You're pursuing your goals, your objectives, your interests. You're gradually working towards those, but you're not doing it with craving, desire, attachment. You can get to the point where you're never exhausted. You'll get sleepy where you need to sleep, but as an enlightened being, you won't get exhausted. It's just not possible for the mind to do that because you're not chasing things, okay? So it's the 7 factors of enlightenment that are going to help you to get there. And the Buddha is just providing some guidance here, but he talks about in other places how to cultivate these, right? So that's through meditation and through some other techniques that you need in order to cultivate these qualities in the mind. Here, I'll share with you one thing that you don't see too often, where he talks about this maturing and release. What he's talking about there is that these cravings, desires, attachments, many of them, even though we say cut it off and let it go, that's not the way it actually works. It's actually cut it off and cut it off and cut it off and cut it off. When your mind's longing and yearning, you've got to restrain the mind. It's like riding a horse. If you've ever ridden a horse and you pull the reins back on the horse and the horse like kind of pulls back, that's what you're doing with your mind. That if you have mindfulness or awareness of mind and you see the mind longing and yearning, you're at the mall and you're like, a new pair of shoes. Look at that new pair of shoes. I want those so bad. Oh, they're going to look so great on my feet. I can't wait to get them, right? You're like, hold on a second. I've got like 30 pairs of shoes at home. Why do I need one more pair of shoes? Let me pull my mind back, right? It's not that you shouldn't ever buy a pair of shoes, but you just got to look, is this a real craving or is this an actual need? Is this something that you need or is this something that the mind wants? Because if you chase your wants, that's very expensive. It's very expensive to chase your wants. You might even go into debt chasing after your wants, right? But if you can observe with your mindfulness that your mind's craving, you can actually restrain it and pull it back. And as you're doing this and you're training your mind over a consistent long-term period, you will notice that it matures and matures and matures, and eventually these cravings will get released from the mind. That's what the Buddha is talking about here when he's talking about maturing in release. That your mind, these cravings are oftentimes very stubborn. If you're longing, yearning, and you're wanting, like I did when I was growing up, I was really into shoes. That's why I use that example. I was really into shoes. My mom was, and I was too. I used to have all kinds of shoes, right? It took me some time to kind of like rewire the mind and realize that one more pair of shoes wasn't going to make my life any better, right? At one time, I probably had 30, 40, 50 pairs of shoes. How many can I wear at one time, right? I didn't need that many pairs of shoes. But my mind, when I would go shopping, it was like one more pair of shoes, one more pair of shoes, right? So I had to rewire the mind and I had to mature the mind and mature the mind and train the mind and train the mind. And eventually that craving was released out of the mind. So some of these cravings can take many years to eliminate. Sometimes a simple one, you can eliminate them more readily, but others, they're stubborn and it kind of, the mind needs to mature and mature and mature before they actually release. Okay. So do you guys have any questions on this one? Oh, by the way, in this unwholesome karma that the Buddha is talking about destroying, what he's talking about is you have these unwholesome qualities in your mind. You have the craving, what we call craving, anger, and there's something called ignorance or the unknowing of true reality. And what you're looking to do on this path is you're looking to eliminate all your unwholesome karma. That by the time you get to enlightenment, you're only experiencing wholesome karma. And this is why an enlightened being, one of the reasons why their life is so peaceful is that there's nothing unwholesome that's happening in their life. Everything that they're doing, they're experiencing nothing but wholesome results in their day-to-day life, right? So to extinguish this unwholesome karma, you're going to need to extinguish the pollutions in your mind. You're going to need to extinguish the unwholesome roots that are in your mind. It's called craving, anger, and ignorance. And when you eliminate and extinguish these unwholesome roots through the training of the mind, you will no longer be making unwise decisions that lead to unwholesome karma or unwholesome results. You'll only be making wise decisions that is producing wholesome karma or wholesome results. So Roxanne, you have a question? Anyone else who has a question? Yeah, you're welcome to come get a microphone up here and then just take it with you because someone around you might need it and you can share it. Mm-hmm.
In a number of places in this discourse, he's talking about the factor of mindfulness, which is based upon seclusion. Mm-hmm. So I'm just wondering how that fits into our lifestyles now, as opposed to being a monk and being part of a sangha.
Sure. What he's teaching you here is that it's important to spend time alone. That if you're always with other people, then you can't listen to your own thoughts. Right? If you're always around a bunch of people, a crowd of people, your friends and family members, you can't just sit and be reflective and be introspective and look inward. So if you're spending time at home alone, if you're going out to the mall alone sometimes, if you go to the park, I think you went for a walk at Chiang Mai University the other day. I saw your Facebook post. Those are the kinds of things that you would like to do, where you're just not always with people, so that you can look inward and you can be reflective and introspective and look inward and sit with your own thoughts. That's what that means. During his lifetime, they would literally go out into the forest and they would live by themselves for months on end. And that's the way that they would do it. Nowadays, that's not realistic, but you can still accomplish the same thing of developing this mindfulness and all these other factors by spending some time alone, whether it's in your house or other places. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
thanks for the lecture. So my question is, I understand what you talked about the unconditional happiness and also training the mind. But there are some situations I want to know how Buddha respond. For example, the disease, like how can you when you're not in a good condition, when you're, for example, I have some family members suffer from cancer, they're really in the pain. Like, how can you train your mind or do the meditation to help with this kind of situation? And also another situation, in nowadays, many people work for extra hours every day. They are somehow exploited by the capital, I would say. And you have to keep this kind of paces, and you have to keep working, like be efficient, and maybe not get well paid. And how can we I don't know, like get some kind of release or feel better by Buddha?
Sure. So let's take the first one first, because I think that'll be easier for you to understand. So if you have a family member who's experiencing sickness or illness, the only reason why you're going to experience discontent feelings like frustration or sadness or worry or stress or things like that is because of your own craving. The mind is wanting mom to be permanently healthy. And when mom's healthy, you're getting what you want, so the mind is happy. But when mom's not healthy, the mind's craving isn't getting fulfilled. It's not getting the permanence that it wants. And now the mind experiences the stress or the anxiety or the frustration or other discontent feeling. So one of the first things I'm going to teach this afternoon is the universal truth of impermanence, where you can understand everything around the world is impermanent. So mom's health is impermanent, just like yours and mine, right? We're not going to be healthy permanently. It's just not possible because we live in an impermanent world. So if your mind can only be happy when mom is healthy, then you can't be happy all the time. Your happiness is contingent. Your happiness is attached to mom being healthy. So when we understand impermanence, that mom's going to sometimes be healthy and sometimes be sick, and sometimes be healthy and sometimes be sick. And ultimately mom's alive, but she's going to die. Just like all of us, we're all going to die. So it's not the love that's causing us, or the care. It's not the care that's causing us to be sorrowful or grieve when your family member is sick. What's causing the mind to grieve or be sad or having stress is that the mind is craving permanence. It's wanting mom to be permanently healthy, and she's just not going to be permanently healthy. So you need to be able to use the entire Eightfold Path, meditation, and a whole bunch of other training to be able to train your mind to let go and realize that there's this middle way, that if you crave and long and yearn and you try to hold on to mom and you want her to be permanent, you're going to ultimately be discontent. But also, if you were on this other side where you could care less about what happens to mom and you couldn't care at all, you're not going to be peaceful and joyful there either. So there's this middle way where you make wise decisions to try to help mom, try to take care of mom, try to ensure that she's got what she needs in order to be healthy. But ultimately, you understand she is going to get sick someday. And that's just impermanence. And now when she is sick, let's try to make some wise decisions to help her get well. And if ultimately she gets fatally ill, where maybe she dies, then we can understand that of course she died. Because she was born, she had to die. The only reason why someone grieves when someone dies is because the mind's craving this person to be permanent, and they're not permanent. So there's various tools and techniques that you're going to need to learn. This afternoon is a great place to start. And then there's other things that you're going to need to learn in order to gradually train the mind to let go, to not hold on tight, but also to not be indifferent and non-caring either. There's this middle way that the mind, oftentimes with its lack of wisdom, has a hard time to be able to see. So this is on that one. Would you like me to use the other example, or are you understanding on this one?
I understand this one, but
Okay.
But for example, like giving the example of cancer, so it is not unconditional, unpermanent healthy, but actually it is permanent unhealthy. You know, it's not getting better, and I mean, okay, this is for the example of giving example of the mom, but for example, if it is me, then I'm actually suffering from this pain every day, every minute, and it's not getting better. I know, like, maybe the best happiness is dying. Like,
Okay.
what should we do? What should we do? Yeah.
It's the same thing. The mind's craving permanent health. Okay. So the suffering that one is experiencing, like say if you got cancer, the suffering that someone is experiencing is, yes, there's physical pain, but then there's mental anguish that goes along with it in the unenlightened state. It's like getting hit with two darts. Like, let's just use a more simple example. Let's say I stumped my toe. I hit my toe on like a piece of furniture. And now there's the physical pain that you experience, and that hurts. But then the mind, if it has craving, it's going to want permanent comfort. And now when the mind's not getting what it wants, this mental anguish arises, this anger, this frustration. And now it makes the physical pain even more intense. So you've got the physical pain that you experience, but then you get the mental anguish that goes along with it. This is what the unenlightened mind experiences because of its lack of wisdom. For a mind that's well trained, you'll experience the physical pain, but you won't have the mental anguish along with it because the mind doesn't crave permanent comfort of the body. The mind understands and has been trained that this body is not going to be permanently comfortable. It's just not possible. So when someone experiences a illness like cancer, they can actually experience the physical pain. They will experience physical pain, but you can get to a point where you don't experience the mental anguish. So this physical pain is actually very muted. In the unenlightened state, you'll experience a lot of pain, but in the enlightened mental state, you don't experience the intense physical pain. It's very muted. It's very minimal compared to the way it was before because there's no mental anguish that goes along with it because there's no craving for permanent comfort. So yeah, we're all going to die. It's just a matter of time. And that death can be very painful or it cannot be painful. You can actually experience a joyful death. It's possible for you to do that. Same thing like if your mom dies. It could be very painful for someone to experience their death of their mom, but you could also experience it in a very joyful way too. Not that you're happy because mom died. You're happy despite she died, right? So when my mom died in 2017, I didn't grieve at all. And it's not because I don't love my mom. It's not because I didn't care about her, just because I wasn't attached to her. I had trained my mind that I understood she's impermanent, just like everyone else. And I wasn't craving for her to be permanent. So of course she's going to die. It's only a matter of time. But if your mind craves permanence when someone dies or your own death, when you're holding on to the world, you won't want to let go. And that'll be very painful. So if you train your mind the way that the Buddha teaches you, you'll experience all these different things in the world very differently than what you're used to. Because we're used to someone dies, we're supposed to grieve, or when you're terminally ill, we're supposed to be sad. But there's a better way of life. And that's what the Buddha teaches you, is how to get to this better way of life where you don't have to have those same kind of feelings. But you can still have your love, you can still have your care, you can still make wise decisions to help people, but you just don't base your feelings on what is happening in the world. Because as soon as you base your feelings on those things, they're going to change. And now your mind goes up and down and up and down. So there's a whole path of training to help you learn how to do this. I wouldn't be able to teach you how to train your mind in just one interaction. That's why we have various classes and courses, retreats, and all these books and everything else. All right. Any other questions here online you guys would like to ask? Okay. Let me see if we have any online.
Actually, like for the second question,
Yeah,
like,
go for it.
When you're treated like, this kind of big difference between rich people and the poor people. When you're being treated unfairly and you're not paid fairly and you have to work extra hours and you cannot stop. It's the same, like you train your mind, this is not permanent. And
what I would encourage someone to do, if they weren't happy with their job and they didn't think they were being paid fairly and they weren't being treated fairly, I would suggest them to find another opportunity to work somewhere else. And if that means gaining new skills or gaining new contacts and people and relationships, to make wise decisions to move on. That if the mind is clinging to the friends in that job, if the mind is clinging to the job itself, if the mind is clinging to whatever amount of salary, or maybe someone's clinging to the title, the job title, they won't want to let go and move into something else. But if there's ever a time that there's something that you don't particularly care for about your life, all you need to do is cultivate wisdom and make different decisions, and you will experience different results. But if you keep making the same decisions, you're going to keep experiencing the same results. So if somebody isn't happy with their life in terms of where they work, then they're going to need to find a different job. They're not being forced to do that job. We all have free will, and we can choose to get new skills, to get new contacts, to move to a different area, to follow and pursue other goals and objectives. But with craving in the mind and clinging in the mind, you'll hold on to this job and you won't be willing to let go. But you can let this go and you can move to something else. That's an opportunity. But oftentimes people don't see that as an option because they're just trying to force this person to pay me what I think I deserve. Where instead, you can't force somebody else to do things your way. It's just not possible. So if this person isn't willing to pay you and treat you the way that you think that you need to be paid and treated, then go find another location, another place. If that requires new contacts or new skills or moving to a new place, that's the things that you're going to need to do. Is you're going to need to be willing to let go of these things and then move to something better. And the Buddha teaches you this as part of his path to enlightenment. It's called right livelihood, where you learn how to make choices about how you choose to sustain your life in order to produce peacefulness and joy within your mind, because you're in a livelihood that you thoroughly enjoy. That by the time you get to enlightenment, you're living the ideal life. You've created that ideal life for yourself, doing things exactly the way that you've always envisioned for your life. So right now, sometimes like people come to vacation, they'll like come to Thailand, right? And it's like, yes, I finally get away from my life. I get to go to Thailand and relax and enjoy life here. Oh, it's going to be so great for a week or a month or 3 months or whatever. Oh, this is so wonderful. But then when it's time to go home, it's like, I don't want to go. It feels like so miserable to go back home. That's because you haven't created a life for yourself that you thoroughly enjoy. The Buddha's guiding you of how to train your mind and how to make wise decisions where you thoroughly enjoy your life and you won't feel horrible to go back to your life because you've created the wonderful life for yourself. But it takes time to transform all of this. You can't snap your fingers and instantly create a wonderful life for yourself. You got to start with training your mind, cultivating wisdom, and then make gradual, slow shifts in your life so that you can create this ideal life for yourself, and that your mind has been trained and you've cultivated relationships such that you're living the wonderful life that you know that you can live. But without the wisdom of how to do that, an individual would struggle because their mind is maybe chasing their cravings. So I'll give you an example. Like for my life, when I first started out, I was working a whole bunch of jobs starting at the age of 12, but eventually I went to college and I decided I wanted to be in IT, and I started doing computers. And the main reason why I did this is I wanted money. I was chasing money. So I chased money and I got lots and lots and lots of money. But you know what? There was lots of stress too. I used to get migraine headaches. I used to vomit sometimes. I used to get migraine headaches 3 times a week, and they were so bad I would vomit, right? And I had lots of money, sure, but look at all this other stuff I got with it. And then the directors and the vice presidents and stuff like this, they put pressure on you to try to get your employees to produce, right? Because I was managing about 55 employees in my last job, and they wanted people to produce, right? And I just wasn't interested. And finally, I was like, you know what? I don't care about the money. And I let go and I moved on and I started doing other things. And now I'm at the point where I don't care about money at all. I need money in order to survive, in order to do the things that I do, but that's not why I do what I do. I share these teachings because I'd like to help people be able to experience enlightenment, but I had to go through that and see that money is not what leads to happiness, right? So in that situation, as long as I was holding on to the money, I couldn't get to happiness. But when I let that go, and I then was able to find the peace and the joy that the Buddha teaches you. And you're going to need some amount of money in your life, but you don't need the gobs and gobs of money that we think we need in order to live a wonderful life.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so now we'll go to this next chapter. Is there someone who would like to read this next one? Let's see, this is chapter 103, very short one. This is a great time if somebody would like to practice their English. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, just get a microphone. Sometimes if we're shy, it's good to put your mind in the situation that it doesn't want to be in and train your mind that there's nothing to fear. This is one of the ways to get over your shyness, is put the mind in that situation.
The destruction of excitement. Seen rightly, he experiences the fading away of strong feelings. With the destruction of excitement comes destruction of craving. With the destruction of craving comes destruction of excitement. With the destruction of excitement and craving, the mind is said to be well liberated.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So this is the Buddha talking about conditioned pleasant feelings. Sometimes when people hear the Buddha teaching like eliminating excitement, they're like, hold on a second. Why would I ever want to get to enlightenment if I have to eliminate excitement? That's what I live for, right? I want that excitement, right? Well, what the Buddha is talking about is the conditional excitement, that you can only be excited if certain things are occurring. And if you allow your mind to get those conditioned pleasant feelings, then you're going to get the painful ones too. So the way that the mind works in the unenlightened state is it chases and chases and chases and chases. And if you get what you want, you get that new pair of shoes that I was talking about, you get so excited, right? You see them in the window, you're walking through the mall, you see that brand new pair of shoes. Oh my goodness, those are the best shoes. Oh, I just can't wait to get them on my feet. You walk into the store and you're like, hey, size 9, 9.5. You're like, oh, sorry, sir, we don't have them. We only have size 6. You're going to be frustrated. If you allow your mind to get so excited about those new shoes that are in the window at the mall, you're going to get frustrated when they don't have your size, right? Or they get stolen, or they get ripped or torn, or you lose them, or somebody steals them. You're going to get angry or frustrated or sad. You're going to get the painful feelings. It's only a matter of time. So the Buddha teaches you how to keep your mind uplifted all the time, where you're just always joyful. You're always happy, right? But this conditional excitement, this conditional pleasant feelings, you need to be able to see the problem in it. That as long as you allow your mind to get happy or excited based on a condition, it's only a matter of time before you get the painful ones. So for example, with a job, if you get so excited about that brand new job that you just got, new money, new salary, new employees, or new coworkers, new title, you're so excited. Wow, it's so excited, right? Well, 3 years later, when the company goes out of business, or they go to a down economy and they need to lay people off and you lose your job, you're going to be sad. You're going to be frustrated. And you're not going to see it 3 years later that the reason why is because you allowed your mind to get so excited when you got the new job. Or say you get a new boyfriend or a new girlfriend. So excited. Somebody's showing you affection. Someone's sending you text messages. You're going out to dinner. You're going out to the movies. You're having great conversations. You're going to the park. You're having intimate contact. You're having sex. All these different, so great. But what happens when you break up? You're sad. You're frustrated, right? So you need to learn how to maintain your calmness and composure. Great. Got a new job. This is the perfect job for me. Great salary, great title, great location, great company, great boss. Excellent. But you need to remind yourself, this job is impermanent. It's not permanent. It's going to be gone someday. Even if you work there for the rest of your life, you're going to retire someday. And even if you worked until your last breath, you're going to die. You're going to need to leave this job at some point. Whereas if you get so excited because of this new job, it's only a matter of time before you get angry or frustrated or sad, right? So that's what the Buddha is teaching you, is to not form conditional pleasant feelings, is to get to the point where there is no craving, there is no longing, yearning, and you're gradually working towards your goals and objectives. And when you accomplish those, great, wonderful. You got that new job. Now let's do a great job. 3 years goes by, the company's going out of business. Okay, well, you knew this job was impermanent anyway. Let me just go find another job. No big deal, right? Let's just go find another job, right? You maintain your calmness and composure. Hey, that was a great 3 years. It was a great run. I learned a lot, met a lot of new people, got some new contacts, made some money, gained some new skills. Now it's time to move on to something else. And because you never grabbed onto it, then you don't have to let it go because you knew it was impermanent from the beginning. So now all you need to do is go find a new job. No big deal, right? You see how this works? You can train your mind to do this kind of thing. So it's really easy to talk about in a classroom like this, but then going out into the world and doing it, that's where you need to train your mind to be able to do this. So that's what the Buddha is teaching you. It's not teaching you to have this dull, boring life. It's actually just the opposite. By the time you get to enlightenment, you're going to be having lots and lots of fun. You'll be having fun all the time. In the unenlightened state, you can only have fun when these certain things are happening. When these things are happening, you'll have fun. But when those things aren't happening, you'll be angry. You'll be frustrated. You'll be sad. By the time you get to enlightenment, you don't have this craving of wanting things to be a certain way. So therefore, you can just have fun all the time, right? So when you see something like this, don't think that the Buddha is teaching you to not have fun, to not enjoy, because you see these pictures of him. Like I have these, I don't have them up here, but you can see the pictures of him around. He usually looks so solemn, he's meditating, right? But I can assure you, a Buddha has a personality. They're cheerful, they're bright, they're radiant, they're joyful. That's what an enlightened being experiences. But people typically like to see the Buddha in a meditation position. So that's the way they kind of depict him. But if you are around a real life Buddha, they're cheerful, they're joyful, they're going to have fun, they're going to have a personality, they're going to tell jokes, right? So a Buddha is a human being just like you and I, right? They're a person who is just like you and I. And the Buddha got to enlightenment, you can get to enlightenment too. Just like you probably pick your nose and you fart and you have mucus coming out of your nose, a Buddha is going to have the same exact things going on, but he's just going to do it joyfully, right? You might wash the dishes. A Buddha can wash dishes too. They're just going to do it joyfully and cheerfully. So by the time you get to enlightenment, you'll be able to do everything joyfully and cheerfully. You won't be disgruntled and agitated and annoyed. But you need to be able to eliminate this craving where the mind can only be excited when you get things a certain way. And then when you don't get it that way, you're going to be angry or frustrated or irritated. So any questions on this discourse? Anything you guys would like to ask? Let me see if we have anything online. Welcome to all of you guys online. Nice to see everybody this morning. I can see some of you. Okay. So it's basically 10:40. I usually kind of end this class around this time. In the evenings, I go through 10 chapters because we actually don't do meditation when I teach this at home. We just go right through the 10 chapters. So if there's anyone who's interested in studying all 10 chapters, tonight at 9 p.m., that's what I'll be doing from home, and it's recorded if you would like to see it. But here at the temple, I usually just go up until about 10:30, 10:45, and we kind of end class at this point. This afternoon from 1 to 4, I'm going to be teaching the introduction to the teachings of the Buddha. This is a course that you're going to be able to see the overall teachings of the Buddha and kind of talk about them from afar so you can understand what they are. And then I'm going to be teaching the very first teaching of the Buddha called the Four Noble Truths. It's actually the three universal truths and the Four Noble Truths. And this is going to help you to be able to have a breakthrough where you can understand the problem in your mind, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. This is a pretty far beyond that. So this is kind of like a different type of learning. But if you would like to start from the very beginning and understand what's causing these feelings in your mind, that would be a great course for you to be able to take. And you can just show up here at 1 o'clock. And if you're here, I'm going to start at 1 o'clock. And I'm also going to live stream it as well for all of you guys online. And it'll be recorded. So you guys can participate in that if you'd like to. And then tomorrow, I have the group learning program at 9 a.m. here, where we'll start with meditation. And then I'm going to be teaching the Eightfold Path, at least a certain section of it. I'm going to be teaching the moral conduct part. So you guys are welcome to attend that as well. And then on Monday, I'm going to be starting that 5-day course, which is a foundation in the path to enlightenment. It's Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And if you'd like any details on any of this stuff, you can see it on our website at buddhadailywisdom.com, or you can come talk with me after class and I'll be pleased to get you plugged in to whatever you'd like, whether it's videos or audiobooks or podcasts or classes or courses or retreats, even even personal guidance. All this is available to you at no cost. You can sit down with me and I'll help you learn how to apply these teachings to your specific day-to-day life. So just let me know if you guys would like any help. So I'll just end by thanking all of you guys for coming. Thank you for joining us here at the temple, and whatever you guys decide to do, have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Okay, Sawadee Krap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.